I didn't know that was on, but funny, if you're one of my 481 Twitter followers, that you know that I think I am the Don Draper of ETG. So that's rather apt. And very slimming photo of me as well. So just wanted to introduce myself, get you to understand what tonight's about, what it is. It's about celebrating community. We're all connected. It's a very, very small industry. And it's about celebrating you, the people who make this industry. So give yourself a round of applause. So, those people that don't know me, my name is Jim Preston. I do like the sound of my own voice, so that's why I've been selected to speak tonight. I have a few really good stories to share, and I'll probably do that later on after a few drinks. But tonight is about other people being able to share those stories. So we've got a couple of doyens of the industry, and I'd like to invite them up right now. We'll get the night kicked off. I'd like to welcome Mr. Mike Hackman. Thanks, Mike. And Mr. Earl Hall. Welcome, Earl. We got the mics for these guys? Just chat amongst yourselves for a bit. So, I've got an interesting interview technique. Is everyone familiar with Graham Norton?
Thank you.
Okay, so it's about interviewing as you drink, because I think that's the only way we can do these things. For those who are a little bit older, there was a comedian, an Irish comedian called Dave Allen, who had a finger missing, who would sit down and have a scotch and just talk stories. So that's another interview technique we'll be using as well. So, but a little less about me and a little less chatter from me. It's more about talking to these fine gentlemen that have joined us here tonight. So I do have some questions prepared. We have rehearsed. So let's just, again, it's about celebrating the industry. It's about talking to people that's been in the industry and how, for one, they got in the industry. So, Mike, let's take us through your journey. Let's talk about how you started in this industry.
Well, it's quite uneventful, actually, compared with some of you. But I started at Rest Point in 1978, actually. It was March 1978. There's lots of Rest Pointers here. Hands up if you've worked at Rest Point. Simo, I know you have. Fiona? Okay. I think some of you aren't prepared to put your hand up. But
so we've got Mick Caban, Fiona. There's a few others from Rest Point over there.
Yeah, lots of people. I mean, it was the start of casinos in Australia, and it's quite amazing how that early bunch of people have gone right around the globe and ended up heading up a lot of operations. So I was there. Moved with Federal Hotels. We opened Alice Springs Casino, Launceston Casino, Darwin, although I wasn't there for the opening, but later on. Back to Launceston, and then we opened for Genting. Genting Australia had the management contract for Perth and Adelaide casinos, so we were there to open those up, and it all started from there.
So all those years ago, and so much has changed, but then really so much hasn't as well. The people are still the same?
Yeah, they still drink a lot.
As evident tonight as well, for sure. Earl, what about you? How did you get involved in the gaming industry?
Well, I guess my story is even less eventful because I just got dropped off from the ferry and I was told to go to D3s.
D3? Right, okay.
And that didn't work out very well. So then I ended up at MP3, and that worked even out worse. So then I cut my teeth at Bellini's, and it was all downhill from there.
So there's a few other bars. There's a few other bars, Earl, you haven't mentioned. The one at MGM. I'm sure that's probably for later on that we can have a chat to that.
We're not allowed to mention the Lion Bar.
Okay, the Lion Bar, yeah. So, when we talk about the gaming industry and all things that are connected, Mike, I know you had some particular stories about the gaming industry. You obviously work with Genting, and then we want to talk about you've got several stories about some key Australian personalities. There's one called Alan Bond that you had a bit of a story about.
Okay, all right. I worked for Channel 9 for a while, and also with the Sky Channel. which was owned by the Packer family, and it got sold to Alan Bond and Bond Media. And I was working on the New South Wales, or the Sky Club Kino project. We'd been working for about a year and a half to get everything going, and all of a sudden our boss was Alan Bond, and we had to get a gaming license, and we had to lodge all our documentation with the New South Wales government. And because Alan Bond was going through his broadcasting tribunal hearings at the time, it looked like he wasn't going to be found to be a fit and proper person to hold a broadcasting license. So there's no way he would get a gaming license. So they stopped our contract, repackaged it, tendered it out, and AWA won the contract. So it was a bit of a disappointment.
And then, so obviously, the whole theme of the night is about connection, and you guys have a common theme. You guys met through DEQ. So would you like to talk about how that all came about?
Yeah. Sure. Well, maybe there's probably an elephant missing in the room, even though he wouldn't like me to call him that. But there's a guy named Mike Talismanic, and Mike Talismanic's claim to fame, at least the one that impressed me the most, is that his first job on this planet as an adult was Elvis Presley's bodyguard.
Hang on, what? Elvis Presley, Mike Talismanic. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So Mike Talismanic was Elvis Presley's bodyguard inside of the Harrier organization. So when I joined the industry, I got some very good advice from somebody and said, Earl, as a supplier, if you want to have any respect in the industry, learn the operations side. So I met Mike in Las Vegas. If anybody knows Mike Talismanic, he looks like a football player, because he was. And Mike being a seasoned operator with Genting, because he opened up the Adelaide Casino. And opening up the Adelaide Casino, that's where I guess you, Andrew McDonald, Joey.
He was our boss.
Michael Johansson.
And a whole crew of people got to know Mike.
Yep.
So me being just another Canadian, not knowing anything about Asia except it's one country, Mike Talismanic grabbed me by the shoulder and took me to Macau and got me to meet Mike and said, Mike will babysit you, don't get in trouble. Mike failed his job.
Was that when you went to the MP3s and the D3s and as well as that?
See, the point here is they've asked me, Earl, you have to have pictures of your time in Macau. I have a question for you. From 2006 to 2010, would anybody of you like to see the pictures from that time? No. No. I have destroyed every trace of everything that's ever happened here, so there's no chance.
Smart thinking, Earl. And Mike, obviously, your connection with Mike?
I got a phone call from Mike Talismanic, who used to be our chief executive at Adelaide Casino, and he said, "Look, I've gone on as chairman of this company called DEQ, but the board's full of bean counters. He says, I've got to get some gaming guys on this company. Will you join?" So that's how I ended up with DEQ. Then it got sold. It was acquired by Scientific Games. Sorry about that, Ken. Sorry about that, Adrian. I believe it's still in a box somewhere. Okay, yeah, that's how. Mike was actually the chief executive that opened Adelaide Casino in 1985.
Fantastic. Now, obviously, we're all here in Macau. We've got a lot of locals from Macau, a lot of people that are based here. We've got obviously a lot of international visitors and guests. So I just wanted to talk to you guys about how it was when you first arrived in Macau and what did you think? Mike?
Well, my first trip to Macau was in 1981. And I wasn't that impressed, I've got to say. The facilities weren't so good. Then I came back later in the 80s and then in the 90s doing different projects and whatever. My brother was here with a lot of you guys through Galaxy, the city club.
Your brother Rod?
My brother Rod, who's up on the board now.
I'm not sure if Rod's here, but yeah, he's
Rod,
part of the tree.
He was going to be here, but he had to go back to the Philippines for a meeting today, which I believe went very well. But maybe tomorrow he'll come back. Then yeah, that's how I've been coming to Macau ever since. Working out of China a lot, and I use this as a base. And
Earl, obviously, your first experience, you've touched on a little bit, but your first impression about Macau and what you got yourself into?
So maybe the point I'd like to add there is I'd spent from 2004 to 2006 doing the tribal casinos in the United States, 20, 30, 40, 50 tables. And Mike Talismanic set me up. We got off the ferry, and the way him and Tui Tran,
yep.
They walked me into the sand so I couldn't see the gaming floor, and we went up to the second floor. And as they walked me out towards the railing, and I looked over and I saw a sea of tables, I just went, oh my God, it was a different world. It was a very exciting, positive shock to see the level of professionalism, the level of security, the mastery of such a crazy level of decisions per minute could be done. And then you go back to North America and you just go, kindergarten.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, even back then, it would have been such an eye-opening place. So, but Mike, I mean, we talk about Macau, but you've had a lot of experience in China as well.
In the old days, actually, there's a photo up.
Now, that's not Flemington.
No, it looks like it could be Flemington, could be Randwick, could be the Hong Kong Jockey Club, actually. But that photo was taken in the early 19... Yeah. Can you see me in there? No, I think I took the photo. There are a couple of dudes in there who are very, very well known, and I won't mention their names. But that was the early 90s. And
that's what we're here about. We want to mention names.
Well, Jelko's in there.
Oh, Jelko. Well, we've got a bit of a story about Jelko a bit later on.
Jelko's the guy on the right. And we travelled the world together. But we helped set up... There's that racetrack, we got it going using Hong Kong Jockey Club old equipment. And we actually provided the horses to go around the track. Bob Hawke was the guy, our former Prime Minister, that did the deal. We got some old nags from the country in New South Wales. So
hang on, the horses were from Bob Hawke?
Bob Hawke organised the horses, yes. And it was quite amazing. But that's the early 90s. Now, that track is up and running now, but only just. So in those days, it was quite a feat for whoever got it going because, of course, gambling wasn't allowed in China.
So obviously, Mike, you know, you've worn many different hats in your day, but how does a gaming guy all of a sudden get in charge of the cruise ships?
Well...
Thanks, guys. If we just have a bit of quiet, please. Shush, shush. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I joined Genting and I was sent to the Philippines as country head, and we had owned half of Resorts World Manila, plus we had a lot of our call centres, probably 600 staff there, including finance, IT, entertainment, hotel ops, HR. So I was in charge of all that. Then our COO on the shipping side retired. So the chairman turned around to me and said, or he asked me, but it was one of those asks that wasn't an ask. I was being told that I was being shipped off to Hong Kong to run the marine operations, which was quite a change from being a gaming guy. So design of ships, construction of ships, operation of ships, port operations. It was quite an experience. I did that for 5 years.
So lots of moving parts, no doubt. You know, as far as ships are concerned and things like going from a land base to a vessel.
There's a lot of changes. The big thing is crisis management. Certain times of the year you've got typhoons coming through that want to wipe you out, and you've got to work out where you put the ships and keep everybody safe. But it's a much different business than what the gaming is.
So I just wanted to, obviously that was one of the biggest challenges that you faced, but Earl, one of the biggest challenges in your career that you've faced related to the gaming industry, would you be able to share with us?
You know, I'm actually glad you asked that question because it's going to loop right back into maybe the theme of tonight and the people. We were a startup. We were trying to do an electronic-based jackpot. We were far ahead of the curve. But there's a guy in the room called Dennis Andriachi who took a chance on us.
I think Dennis.
Where's Dennis?
Stand up, Dennis.
Stand up, Dennis.
Give us a wave.
So to the dismay of a lot of people that I can't mention, Shuffle Master, we ended up installing in Singapore, then came to Macau and was a whole other ball of wax, and then I met Kylie.
Stand up.
And the most beautiful thing about watching Kylie do a sale was the first time I ever saw her pitch a DEQ jackpot system where she was randomly taking words out of the dictionary. And I'm sitting there and she was pitching to God Bless You. She was pitching to Scott Milburn.
Yeah.
She was pitching to Scott Milburn. And after about 15 minutes of listening to her, I actually believed what she was selling.
Sold.
That for me was one of the highest points of my career, watching someone randomly pitch a product and sell it.
Nothing's changed, has it, Kylie? And then, Mike, yeah, obviously you talk about the gaming shifts, but you were speaking to me about the Missouri gaming license.
Oh, Missouri. The Earl and I with DEQ had to be licensed by Missouri at one stage there. And I'm in my office in Sydney, and out of the blue, 2 state troopers turn up at my office, banging on the door. And they've flown all the way from Missouri to check me out for my license application.
And you were where? Where were you living at the time?
In Sydney at the time. So they've flown from Missouri to Sydney, charged it to us, the business class airfare. And they went around taking photos of my car, my apartment. I owned a small aircraft at the time, so they're taking photos of my plane. And then that took them half a day. Then they disappeared for 2 or 3 days, sightseeing and shopping for their family. And but that was the most difficult licensing process that I've had to go through. Earl?
Anything to add on that, Earl? You know the Missouri licensing program well?
I have no comment about the regulators.
There's a cone of silence here, so it's all, we're all among friends.
The only thing I will say is when you get a licensing package in the email and they put a rubber glove in there, it's a little bit intimidating.
I think you got 2 rubber gloves because I didn't get one.
Plus a fine from Pennsylvania.
All right, obviously it's never always smooth sailing, so any monumental disasters or any people that maybe off your Christmas card list or they're off yours?
Okay, hands up if you worked at Crown in Melbourne. Many?
Crown Melbourne people.
There's a few.
There's a few of us.
Okay. There's a ferry that goes between Melbourne and Tasmania called the Spirit of Tasmania, and I won the contract to put a casino on board. 2 or 3 days before sailing, our first sailing out of Melbourne on a Tasmanian Gaming Commission licence, the Crown was about to open 2 or 3, it might have been a week later, and the next day in the newspaper, on the Telegraph front page, says Victoria's first casino opens, referring to me with my little ferry and my little casino operation, not referring to Crown. So the chairman of Crown, Lloyd Williams, gave me a call the next day and said, am I allowed to use swear words in here? Actually, I'll tone it down, what he actually said to me. He said, if I hear about that bloody ship again, I'm going to effing sink it. And he meant it. He meant it. And he got back at me later on because within a few few months there was legislation passed in Victoria banning the use of the word casino and other than Crown Casino. And so I had to go around, it cost me $100,000 to go around the ship and change all the signage because I had to take the word casino off all the directional boards. Yeah, he got me back.
All right, so we've got to keep this night moving. It's been great to chat to these guys. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please give Mr. Earl Hall and Mike Hackman a big round of applause. Gents, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
Next time.